Titanic Talk with Nelson Aspin and Alexandra Boyd. Here we feature stories from the independent documentary Ship of Dreams Titanic Movie Diaries and everything else to do with the iconic ship. From James Cameron's epic groundbreaking movie to the history and legacy of Titanic herself. Join us and our special guests as we continue the 25th anniversary celebrations of Titanic. This is your first-class ticket to everything aboard the Ship of Dreams.
You know what time it is. Ladies and gentlemen, it's time for Titanic Talk. I'm Nelson Aspin. My co-host is Alexandra Boyd, the filmmaker behind Ship of Dreams, Titanic Movie Diaries, and she was also one of the actors in James Cameron's masterpiece of Titanic. And today we're going to be speaking to another person from the Titanic film that's celebrating its 25th anniversary. Alexandra, who have you got for us today?
I'm so excited because we get to talk with Gary DeLellis, who was Leonardo DiCaprio's stand-in. It's a really important job, and I want him to tell us about it because he would have been literally side by side, cheek by jowl with the man, the boy himself. Gary, welcome to Titanic Talk.
Oh, thank you guys so much. I'm so happy to be here. Thanks for reaching out. I'm really going to have a good time. Thanks.
Love that you've got the Titanic background there, and I see you're wearing your crew jacket.
Got my crew jacket.
Tell us, you were really a huge part of the crew and a huge part of the production. Tell us how you got the job.
As you tell us how you got the job, I think it's important for the audience to understand exactly what a stand-in does. I mean,
Yes,
and
very good.
it's
I'm
a very,
jumping the
very
gun,
important,
Nelson. I'm jumping the gun. Sorry.
but it's such a sought after and important role in a movie's production. And yeah, after you describe what that is entailed, some people may go, "Oh my God, I'd love to be a stand-in," and others may go, "Oh my God, I could never do it." So yes, tell us, what is a stand-in and how'd you get the job?
Okay, so stand-in, basically every single scene that you see in the movie, we have to set up and get set up for lighting, for pretty much everything that needs to be set up before the main actors come in. So we were basically called second crew, and Leo and Kate were first crew. So basically we would set everything up. Leo and Kate would come in, Jim would have them watch us do it one time. They would see their tape on the floor, know exactly where they're supposed to walk and go, and then they would come in and actually do the real thing. But it took us, gosh, sometimes 4-7 hours to set these scenes up. And so, yeah, we were the ones behind the scenes setting everything up, and then Leo and Kate would come in, watch us do it, and then take over.
So it's not just height, weight, coloring, but would you have to learn the lines as well as the blocking?
No, we didn't have to learn the lines, but we did have to know what the scene was all about. And we needed to know that. So like for one of the scenes where Cal was chasing us down the grand staircase, shooting at us, we had to set that up, and he had his real gun, and he was actually shooting at us. And so that took a while to set up because the floor was slippery, and there was a lot involved in that. But so we didn't have to learn lines, but we needed to know the specifics of what we were doing for that scene.
And so for the audition, or interview, were you, I shouldn't say are you, we've seen how Leo has changed over the years, but at the time, were you the same height, weight, hair color? Was that an important component?
So funny thing is, so I was not originally cast for the stand-in for Leo. So I was working at a grocery store. I got emancipated when I was 15 years old. I've been on my own ever since. I was working at a grocery store full time. Me and Leo are the same age. We're both 21. He's November, I'm March. And I just woke up one morning at like 4 a.m. and saw on TV there was going to be an open casting call for some movie. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to go. And I went by myself and never done anything like that before. Waited in line downtown San Diego. And basically waited for 6 hours, went in, they took pictures, did all that. And I totally forgot about it. 3 months later, I got a call and they're like, "We need you in 2 weeks." And I was originally part of the core group of extras. So I got down there the first week of September of '96. And the first week I was basically in when we were doing the drowning scenes in that 4-foot deep heated tank. And they asked me to actually stand in for Ioan Gruffydd, who played Fifth Officer Lowe. So I was his stand-in first when we were doing the whole, is there anyone alive out there with the flashlight?
With your Welsh accent, perfect Welsh accent.
Not really. But then Leo's stand-in, his original stand-in, didn't last, I don't think, a week. And then they put a temporary in, and he didn't really last. So really, the second or third week in, they gave me the job, and I did it for the next 7 months. Yeah, so I ended up doing it for the next 7 months. But I'm an inch shorter than Leo. So there is a funny story that I put on my Instagram about that with Kate, the first time I met Kate. So if you, I don't know, do you want me to tell you guys about
Tell
that?
us that story.
Okay, so this was the first time I'd ever met Kate, and we were doing the third class dancing scenes, and she was in that gorgeous, you know, burgundy red dress.
The dinner dress.
So
the dinner dress.
yeah, sequins, beautiful. And so Leo, they were still working on Leo. So Jim was like, Gary, let's just get this set up real quick. So let me have you do it with Kate. So Kate comes up, I put my arm around her and up on her shoulder, and she just looks at me and is like, this just will not work. He is much too short. And I was like, oh my God. I was devastated. And I was like, oh my God. And so Jim was super quick. He was like, no, you know what? We just need to set this one thing up real quick. Let's just do this and get going. So right after that, this was a night shoot. So I think we ended at like, God, it must have been like 7 or 8 in the morning. I got in my little Mitsubishi Mirage, drove up to San Diego. It was a 3-hour drive, and I went to a Doc Martens store in Pacific Beach and bought a pair of platform shoes. And we had to be back on set, I think, at 2 p.m. in the afternoon. So I think I made it just in time to get back to set. I was on no sleep, and I get on set, and Jim and Josh, the AD, look at me and just start laughing. And they're like, what are you wearing? And I'm like, well, at least now I'm not much too short. And they just started laughing, and I ended up keeping my job and was there another 6 months. And
ingenuity, that's it. Ingenuity and initiative. That'll keep you in the club for sure. That's a great story. I just went to wardrobe and got you a pair of lifts. Just got you some heels to wear. But the Doc Martin story is perfect. Yes.
Yeah, and it totally worked.
Nice plug for Doc Martin as well.
Oh, oops.
So you stayed on for another 6 months. I mean, very lucrative, I would assume much better paying than the grocery store. And did you continue on and have a career in film and television as a stand-in after that? Or did nothing compare?
Yeah. Oh, well, no. So I moved in with the casting director, Tina Kerr. So she was the extras casting director. I moved in with her afterwards up in Playa del Rey. But, you know, for the next 8 months, the Titanic didn't come out, and everybody was kind of blacklisted. Like, nobody knew what the movie was going to do. So like a lot of the people that worked on it had a hard time finding work in the interim. So I helped her with some casting stuff. She had a friend, another casting friend that I helped out. I did some work on like The Dating Game with Chuck Woolery and The Big Date. So I worked on a lot of like shows like that, doing casting for a while. But then ended up, you know, moving to Hawaii, and I've been there for the last 20 years. And I just moved to Florida a year and a half ago.
Do you ever run into Leo? Because doesn't he hang out in Hawaii a lot? Maybe you'll run into him on a beach sometime.
Yeah, funny thing is, he actually did our tour, and I wasn't there and didn't even know about it. So we had a tour called Heli Zip, where it's a helicopter and a zip line, and he brought some of his model friends. And yeah, they came and did that, but I totally missed him, and it was so weird. But this was like 8 years ago or so.
I was going to say, Kate doesn't sound like she was so nice to you, you know, with the whole height thing. But what about with Leo? Because I would assume you would see him every day. He'd have to come in and take your spot. What was he like to work with?
They were both amazing. I mean, that first thing with Kate, I think she was just, you know, like, oh, he's much too short. But after that, they were both amazing. They're both super down to earth. They were just amazing. And, you know, for us, we were behind the scenes with them every day, some 15 hours a day for 7 months. So, I mean, everybody got pretty tight and everything else, but it's just like with any job, you know, once you move on to something else, we didn't really stay in touch or anything like that. I stayed in touch for a little bit because his assistant and us were pretty good friends. But yeah, we really didn't stay in touch after that. Yes.
I remember Jonah. Yes.
Yeah, Jonah.
When we do these, now that Titanic talk is becoming a thing and Ship of Dreams is going to be seen by everybody now. assuming Leo and Kate might run into this podcast, what would be your message to them? Just if you could catch up after 25 years.
Oh my gosh. Well, congratulations on everything you guys have accomplished. It's so incredible. That was the biggest opportunity. I mean, I had so much fun on Titanic. That was, I mean, honestly, I can't even imagine. And there was no negative that came out of it in any way. It was just all positive, once in a lifetime opportunity. And they were so much fun to work with. And I mean, I now looking back, had I known now what I know, like known then what I know now, I would have done a lot of things differently as well, because my gosh, she was 19 and had to carry that movie on her own. Like, I mean, Romeo and Juliet had just come out in the middle of filming and he just exploded. So, I mean, there was so much pressure on them and I just give them so much respect. And yeah, they're just both amazing. And yeah, it was just so much fun to work with them.
Gary, you gave me the perfect opening in talking about Leo, because after you mentioned Romeo and Juliet, and then Titanic came, and forget it. I mean, he was the hottest ticket in town, and in a way continues to be. I mean, it really something really propelled him to the A-list, even though he'd had an Oscar nomination for Gilbert Grape, et cetera, et cetera. And I had been approached in Los Angeles in the late 90s to do this really cheesy documentary. It wasn't cheesy at the time because it was like the video version of a teen magazine. It was called Hangin' with Leo. Maybe one of the most dreadful productions of all time. And it was a half-hour love letter to that dreamy Leonardo DiCaprio. And I was a young, aspiring TV presenter, and I was hired to do this cheesy documentary, which resurfaced recently on a show called Everything is Terrible, which celebrates the worst things of all time. And Hangin' with Leo is one of the worst things of all time. Flash forward a year or two, Alexandra has a friend who consequently became a mutual friend of mine, and we would spend our Los Angeles Christmases with this friend, who turns out to be pals with Leonardo's mother, Ermeline. So there were a couple of years where we would have Christmas dinner with Ermeline DiCaprio. And we would talk about this funny video, this dreadful Hangin' with Leo thing. I went to interview Leo for some movie. I've interviewed him a few times. And I mentioned it. And he said, I'm dying to get a copy of it. It's become this sort of notorious thing. I got my hands on a video copy. So for all the haters out there that go, Hangin' with Leo is one of the worst things ever, Leonardo appreciates it for what it meant. So Titanic and Romeo and Juliet made him a heartthrob. What effect did it have on your, let's just call it, street cred?
Actually, it just taught me. I just learned so much from James Cameron. I mean, because really, we were with him most of the time. I mean, we were the first ones on set and we were the last ones to leave. And his work ethic was just incredible. I mean, we were only getting like 5 or 6 hours sleep at night. He was getting less than us. And the pressures that they had. I mean, wasn't this like the first movie that had to have 2 studios come in, because halfway through we ran out of money and Jim gave up his salary? I mean,
he put his own money in, he gave up his points because he was so far in at that point. There was no turning around and coming back. And yeah, it was an incredible feat. And people like to, especially crew people, it's really lovely to hear you talking in this way, because crew people like to hear that he's a monster, that he's a tantrum, that if he ever lost his temper once, wouldn't you look back now and go, look at the pressure he was under? Every time you walk onto the set, the clock is ticking and the money is evaporating. And,
Absolutely.
The fact that he could pull off any of it, and some of those extraordinary scenes, especially the sinking sequences, are just breathtaking. And he did it. I remember seeing him at the cast and crew screening afterwards, and I was going to be very calm and congratulate him and thank you so much for it, inviting me to be part of this film. And again, before it exploded at the box office, we all we all went to see a cast and crew screening, and I was just blown away because I didn't know what to expect. We were told the thing was going to sink like the ship. And I wanted to have my photograph taken with him. And the minute I saw him, I just started doing this. You're amazing. It was, he goes, oh, look, you don't hold back, do you? That's what actors do. I said, me hold back? You didn't hold back. And I started lecturing him on his incredible determination. Like, he didn't know that. It was the first time I realized how under intense pressure, not just because of the setup of the film and the money and the two studios and all of that, and accountants coming down with calculators going, you're gonna have to cut this and you're gonna have to cut that, and him just not taking any notice and doing it anyway. It's incredible.
And Alexandra always talks of her experience in being in Titanic as the best film school she could have possibly attended. So it sounds like a universal thing. Everybody involved with the production of the film learned something. It wasn't just an experience to live. It was an education. So tell us, in the years. All right, so you worked in some production and casting after Titanic, and tell us where you are now, if we haven't already figured this out from your Instagram.
Well, yeah, so I moved to Hawaii after that. Well, there is a funny story though. My very first job after Titanic. So it was like 3 months after filming. I was living in Playa del Rey. I had sent out my resume and I got a call back from this director that said, "Oh, I've worked with James Cameron. We need a production assistant on this movie we're doing." And he gave me the address and he's like, "Can you come tomorrow?" And I'm like, "Absolutely." I'm like, let's see what it is. And I end up going there, and it was in the Valley. And I show up and he goes, "Let me introduce you to the director." And they take me out to the backyard and he gets out of the pool naked. And I'm like shaking his hand and I'm like, "What am I doing?" What's that?
I said, I'm glad it was his hand.
Oh, yeah, exactly. So they're like, "Well, hey, the U-Haul just pulled up. Can you help us unload?" And so I go out there and I'm like, "What is happening?" And they open it up and it was full of bondage. And I'm like, "Okay, I'm not doing this. I can't go from Titanic to porn." There's no way. So yeah, I was there 10 minutes and took off.
How extraordinary. And who did they think they are, going, "Oh yeah, you who's worked with James Cameron, we need a bit of your sparkle on our porn set."
Right, exactly. Yeah, so that was funny. So my friends get a kick out of that when it's like, yeah, I went,
Let's be clear, this is not where you have landed.
No, I'm not landed there.
Moving on.
No, but actually, so yeah, I moved to Hawaii about 20 years ago. We started a tour company. I had a zip line, an ATV company. We still have our tour company there. We do land tours. We're contracted with all the cruise lines. So I've done that. Now we're still doing that from Florida. We go back every few months. And I started my real estate career here in Florida. So I'm doing real estate here, going back and forth from Hawaii, keeping the tour company going. And it's called Kapohokine Adventures. If anybody's going to Hawaii, love to take you out. But yeah, so that's pretty much where I'm at today. But honestly, I have to
living the life, Gary. You are living the life. I've seen some of those houses you're selling. They're beautiful.
Oh my gosh, yeah, they are. Yeah, I mean, I love Florida. I love everywhere. Everywhere is a risk. I always tell people, an opportunity only comes once. And like, with Titanic, I mean, they just told me, "I need you in 2 weeks." And I didn't even, they didn't tell us what it was. We didn't know it was called Titanic or anything. And yeah, I was like, you know what? I'm just doing it. And I just always say yes. And then if you fail, you fail. But if not, always say yes and just figure it out as you go. But always take.
You know who that sounds a lot like? It sounds a lot like Jack Dawson. The
oh my
same
God.
kind of attitude.
I've seen some of your reels on Instagram, and you have some really, I would say, extremely rare artifacts and props from, come on. You have acquired some stuff that you used in the film. Tell us a little bit about what you still have. And we won't tell any of our super fans or collectors because they'll be on you with checkbooks. So just go through some, because they're really curious and interesting.
Yeah, so there was one. So I have the matchbook. So the one that Leo caught. So when they were in the dining room scene. So yeah, everybody got up and walked away, and I was just like, well, I was still there because I'm standing in for them, and I was just like, there was a ton of them on the table, and I'm just like, oh, okay, I'll just pocket that because I smoked back then as well. So I was like, oh, I'll just probably, and then I was like, I won't probably use it for matches. So I have that. One thing that I really loved, that I really enjoyed filming setting up was with Kathy Bates. She was setting up for Leo's tie to put him in the tuxedo. And she really needed to practice like how to tie it and make sure before Leo came. So we spent almost 45 minutes, and she is amazing. I think everybody was just so down to earth. It was like we worked together for so long. We really got tight, right, Alexandra? Like we all kind of became like
I'm
a tight
still friends
family.
with people. I made
Yeah.
lifelong friends. 25
Yes.
years later, they are still, I mean, not just Facebook, but people who I've been through a lot. You know, I don't
Yep.
live in Los Angeles anymore, but for another 10, 15 years, I was there and we became very close, all because of Titanic. Absolutely. I know exactly. But you're talking about A-list actors too. You know, I'm talking about us supporting peeps.
Oh
But
no, totally. Like, yeah,
yeah.
my friend Jamie, who was my roommate on Titanic, she was one of the core extras. She is a designer now, and she still lives in LA. She's a fashion designer and an interior designer, but she has 2 kids now. Every time I go back, I see her, and we have kept in touch for 25 years. And she's like my sister. She was only 17 when they started filming, so they put me in charge of her as her like guardian. And I'm like, oh God, I don't know. She pretty much was my guardian, basically. But yeah, we had so much fun together. Like she was my roommate in our condo, and yeah, it was pretty amazing. I do have a couple things that I wanted to show you, Alexandra. I don't know if you had gotten them, but so I found this. I've kept a bunch of stuff, and I just started going through my storage when the 25-year anniversary started happening, but I'm not sure if you remember this sweater, the Titanic core group, and it had on the back.
Oh,
Yeah, we had
hardcore. I like that. You see,
hardcore.
that was foreshadowing your porn career that you rejected out of hand. Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, but I still have my stand-in costume.
Oh my goodness. You better put that under lock and key.
That will pay
Yeah.
for your retirement right there.
Oh my gosh. I do have a wool crew jacket. I bought two. I bought one blank one with just the embroidered boat on the back. And
Oh,
then I
got it.
bought one for myself that has White Star Line and First Class Woman, Alexandra Boyd. And I've kept,
Awesome.
but it's somewhere in my storage. And yes, I know that I always thought, well, the first one, the blank one, I called it. I did raise a bit of money for a short film that I needed on Kickstarter. I said I've got a Titanic jacket for £1,000, and it went. That was like 10 years ago.
Wow.
And then I have mine, which I probably shouldn't ever sell. But the thing is, I don't really wear it either. Maybe I'll have to start wearing it again now that we're running around the place promoting the film, because it was just such an extraordinary experience.
Yeah, there were also experiences that were not like that I got to experience. So the other thing is, had we not filmed that, if we had filmed that in America, I never would have been able to do some of the things I did. So like, Jim threw me in with the stuntmen when we were doing the drowning of the Grand Staircase.
Oh,
So
I
I'm
know
actually,
this. Yes, you're in that bit where the water's bursting through the glass dome.
yeah, so I was on set and Jim was like, we need more people in here. We need more bodies. And he just looks at me and he's like, Gary, get in there. And I was like, so that would never have happened in LA.
Never.
You know what I mean?
You were acquiring stunt skills that you didn't know you had or needed.
Right. But it was so amazing. It was such cool experiences. There was one too, Jim Cameron's bodyguard, Jim. Do you remember him, Alexandra?
His bodyguard.
Yeah, so he actually he came up to Lori and I, Kate Winslet's stand-in, and said that there was an actor that had flown in from Europe and he was staying up at Linda Hamilton's house up in Malibu, and they needed someone to go pick him up the next day. And Leo and Kate were off, so that meant we were off. So he's like, "Well, you guys drive up to Linda's house and pick up Yari." He played Bjorn Gunderson, one of the third class guys that roomed with Leo, or Jack. So yeah, so we basically were like, all right. So we drove up to Malibu and we walk up to Linda Hamilton's front door and we knock. And I swear to you, she had on a white, like just like in Terminator, the white tank top. And I swear she'd been working out. And she opens the door and she says, "Who the F are you guys?" Like, and we just went, and she's like, "Just kidding. You're Gary and Lori. Come on in." And I was like, "Oh my God."
She knew what she looked like. She wanted to just tease you a bit.
Totally mess with us. But the coolest thing was he was staying in her pool house. And so we had to wait like an hour for him to get all of his stuff together. And we got to hang out with Linda Hamilton for like an hour and then take Yari back down. It took 3 hours to get back to Mexico, but such a cool experience. And I was like, Jim trusted us so much that like, he's like, go drive up to my wife's house and Yeah, you know what I mean? It was so cool.
Alexandra's very memorable moment in Titanic is when Leo enters the dining room and she kind of gives him the eye up and down. Did you guys interact? Did you block that? Actually, were you two together at some point in that scene before the cameras rolled?
I don't remember, Gary. I think you
No.
were in the more intimate scenes when there weren't like hundreds of people around everywhere that they had to manage.
So yeah, that was the hard part. I wasn't really around a lot of the extras very much because Lori and we were kind of isolated almost because we would set everything up. And then when it was ready, we were gone. And then they all come in. So we were kind of not crossing paths very often. You know what I mean? So yeah, like
that's a good question for Alexandra then, Alexandra, because we know that moment so well of you looking longingly at Jack Dawson, but who were you looking at when they filmed that? Did James Cameron just sort of have a pen look over here?
Pretty much, but I also am looking right down the lens of the camera. So they filmed them coming in. I was standing there to the side, and then they turned around on me, and I got my 3 seconds of fame. Literally, look, because it's Jack's POV, isn't it?
That was a great shot.
This new world that is about to change his life forever. And I guess I was the first person that went, haven't seen anything like that in first class before.
Gary, how often did you see the film? Did you go to the 25th anniversary re-release? Do you watch it on TV, or just do you forget about it?
No, I went to the 25-year anniversary because, I wanted to see like, all of the updates in the 4K and everything else. And yeah, it was great. And we went to the
so many memories, every scene. Every single scene. I mean, I've got an image of you standing there with handcuffs on around the pole.
Yeah.
I mean,
all of it.
Okay,
are we back to that
step
porn
out,
movie
Gary.
again?
Here comes Leo. What did you say, Nelson?
I said, are we back to that porn movie again? Handcuffs and a pole.
Just can't get away from it.
But yeah, every single shot I had to set up. So when I'm looking at that, when I watched the movie, I just remember, oh my gosh, one of the scenes, I swear I had to stand there for 2 hours was, when he's looking out the porthole when he has his hands there, they could not get, because the water was so murky, they could not get the lighting and everything right on the outside of the ship because we were actually, in the, what's it called? Like they were,
Purser's room. It's the purser's room that she has to find him in that room, you mean?
Yeah. So, but the water was on the outside of the ship and I had to keep my head in there just like this for like 2 hours while they were trying to get it. So there were some scenes that were really difficult. Like, yeah.
I can understand that and that's why they don't have the actors doing it because, I mean, and on independent films, there's not stand-ins or anything, but,
right.
And of course they don't take the time that they can take on a film the size of Titanic, but imagine how exhausted they would be if they had to stand there and wait for the lighting to happen.
And then Leo can just breeze right in there and take your spot and do the easy part.
Yeah. There's also safety as well because when when Leo was diving for the keys behind the locked gate when it was flooding, so I had to set that up as well. And so while I was diving down, they had 2 guys next to me, divers with spare air tanks, and basically my shirt, because Leo had that beige shirt that went down. So when I was grabbing for the keys, my shirt got caught on the bottom of the gate. And when I came up, it actually ripped and stuck to the gate and I was stuck down there. And so the guys came and gave me some spare air while they got my shirt off. And so Jim immediately told Leo, you have to be careful because Gary got his shirt stuck on that gate and you don't want that to happen. So
you're a lifesaver as well, Gary.
I was going to say you saved Leo's life. He didn't, Kate just dropped him and let him go, but you saved Leo's life. Right. Well, you know what? This is great. Tell us how do we find your Instagram page so we can hear more of these stories, see more of your props, and maybe buy some of your houses.
Yeah, it's on Gary DeLellis, at Gary DeLellis, and that's pretty much it. And my tour company is Kapohokine Adventures over in Hawaii. If you guys ever come to the Big Island, Want to go see the volcano, do some lava trekking, we can do all that for you as well.
And if anybody wants to purchase your costumes from Titanic, they are welcome to make you an offer that
he's
you
shaking
can or
his head.
cannot
He's
refuse.
shaking
You
his head,
never know.
They're
Nelson.
very personal.
This is like hanging with Leo, but better.
Thank you so
Thanks,
much,
you guys.
Gary.
If you've enjoyed this podcast, please leave a review. And if you'd like to hear more podcasts like this, hit the subscribe button. For information on where you can see Ship of Dreams, Titanic Movie Diaries, go to shipofdreamsfilm.com. Titanic Talk is a production of Ship of Dreams Film Limited.